Hey everyone, my name's Rodney and I'm just big boned, and this is day 116 of my weight loss journey. And today I'm going to be doing something a little different, and let me know after the video if this is something you want me to do again. But I consider myself to be a storyteller. I have been an actor. I've dabbled in writing and filmmaking and stuff in the past, simply because I like to tell stories. And I get a lot out of stories. There's a lot of valuable life lessons we can learn from stories. So today I'm going to tell you a story from my own personal life that really is taught me something about myself. And so in the past, after I left high school, I struggled to find my way. I spent many years going from one job to another, not liking any of them, not really excelling at any of them. I struggled to find fulfilling relationships. I spent a lot of time being lonely. My self-esteem hit an all-time low, and I fell into becoming a chef, which I did for a while. And I also fell into a relationship with a girl, which became an engagement. And eventually I moved out of my home in northern Sydney to move in with her and her family out in western Sydney. And things didn't get better. I struggled a lot again with unemployment. I was smoking a bit of dope. When I say a bit, chronically every day for 2 years. And I became depressed. And at times I became quite suicidal too. I had a lot of thoughts of suicide. And eventually I thought, enough, I need to get out of this environment. So I moved out of Western Sydney back home with my mum in Northern Sydney. The relationship ended after 5 years. And I started to, focus on getting my life back together. Problem is, I couldn't get a job because I didn't want to work in hospitality anymore. I didn't want to work with food, but I wasn't qualified to do anything else. And so after watching an episode of The Force, which is Australia's version of Cops, I decided I wanted to do a job that was meaningful. And so I found an ad in the newspaper to do a diploma in counselling. And over the years, I've had a lot of counseling. It's a process that I really resonated with, and I understood it. And people have always been able to talk to me. I've always been someone who was easy to talk to. People end up having these deep conversations with me throughout my life, and then they say, I don't know why I just told you all of that. So I thought it'd be something I was good at. So I enrolled. And what I found was that not only was I good at it, I really enjoyed it. And I felt like I had found my purpose, my calling in life. And to back that up, I started working for an organization called Lifeline as a telephone counselor. And I really excelled at that. And I was really good at it, and I really enjoyed it. I had 2 years to complete this diploma, and I finished it in about a year and a half. That's how much I enjoyed it, and I just went through it. And when the diploma was over, I set out looking for a job in a new industry. And I eventually landed a job as a mental health support worker. And it was about this time as well, I've now got a new job. I can move back out of my mum's house, and I moved in with a friend, sharing a house with him. And things were looking really good. I started my new job. A couple of days into the job, I got a bit sick. My housemate had the flu, and I had the flu too. But I wanted to make a really good impression, and you can't call in sick on your first week of a new job, which is what I was thinking. So I just pushed on. I kept taking cold and flu tablets, and I pushed on, and I became sicker, and I didn't have a lot of energy. I would fall asleep on the bus and the train to work. If I was in the car for work and I was in the back seat, I'd fall asleep. I'd fall asleep on the bus and the train back home. I'd eventually crash out on the couch eventually get to bed and just sleep. I had very little energy, and as the days went on, it became more of a struggle for me to just function. And eventually, after a week at this new job, we had a team meeting, and our regional manager was out, and she could see how sick I was. And she took my manager aside and she said, "What's he doing here? He's obviously really sick. He needs to go home." So they took me aside and they said, "Rodney, it's okay. You're obviously sick. You can have some time off." So the next day I called in sick, and I pretty much slept all day. I would wake up at really odd hours, not knowing what day it was, what time it was or anything, and then go back to sleep. The next day I wasn't any better, but we had a big thing happening at our head office, which was an area I had never caught a bus to before. But in my state, I think I was, I don't know, I don't want to call it delirious, but that's the way it felt. I thought, I need to get out. I need to get to this thing. It's important. Didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was just going to go. And so I managed to get up, struggling. I got dressed. I walked outside. I walked across the street. And then I had a problem walking. And that was the first time I thought to myself, crap, I'm in trouble. Managed to get back inside, and I called my mum and I said, I think I'm in trouble. She knew I was sick because she'd been keeping tabs on me and asking how you were and that sort of thing, but it was a flu, it's okay, don't worry about it. But now I called her and I said, I think I'm in trouble. I can't walk properly, which is not a normal flu symptom. And so she said, and she was at work at the time, she said, do you want to go to the doctor or do you want to go to hospital? And I said, I think I am beyond the doctor. I think I need to go to hospital. And so she said, all right, I'll call a taxi, because she wasn't driving. I'll call a taxi, it'll come pick you up. Tell it to come and get me, and we'll go to hospital. So I waited, the taxi showed up, and the last thing I remember is slumping into the back of a taxi. Next thing that I can recall is it's dark and I can hear this voice. And this voice said, I'm a doctor, Rodney, you've been sick, but you're going to be okay. All right? Don't try and move, don't try and breathe. You have a tube in your throat, all right? You're about to wake up, we'll get it out, but I just want you to be calm, everything's going to be okay. And I woke up, and I'm in another hospital I've never seen before in my life. I had a tube down my throat. I had relatives around me, and I'm wondering what the hell has happened. And from then, my mum started to tell me everything that had happened. So I got into the taxi. We picked her up, and we went to Myrna Vale Hospital in Sydney's north. When I got to hospital waiting in emergency, they came and they did a little obs check on me and quickly got me into a bed and said to my mum, come with us. And here I am strapped up to all sorts of things. Now, my mum's a nurse, so she knows if they got me in this quickly, something is really wrong. And they've said, look, he's really sick. We don't know what's wrong yet. His oxygen saturation levels, they freak out if it's 90 or below. It was around 30. So I had hardly any oxygen in my body, which is why I struggled to function. She said, he needs intensive care, but we don't have a bed. We're going to transfer him to Manly Hospital. And so not long after that, I got into an ambulance and they took me to Manly Hospital. And I stayed there for about a day, and they were just observing me, still trying to figure out what was wrong. They did some chest x-rays. And you know, when you look at a chest x-ray, you can see the white parts where the bones are, but in the middle, it's all black. That's your lungs. My chest was completely white. You couldn't see any of the black. And so now they're starting to freak out. And so they kept me in hospital for a little while, and hoping I'd start to clear and I'd start to get better. And they said, he's not getting any better. We need to intubate him, which is where they they knock you out and they put the tube down your throat to help you breathe. And at first I didn't want it. I was scared. I was asking my mum, am I going to die? And she said, no, of course not. You're not going to die. But the doctor came over to me and he said, look, I do this all the time. I do it every single day. I've done it thousands of times. You're going to be okay, but we need to do this. Okay, this is really important. So I agreed. They put me in a medically induced coma and they intubated me and they put the tube down my throat. And then they watched me for about another day or so and I wasn't getting any better. And finally, it was a Friday that they came to my mum and they said, he's not getting any better. What we want to do now is we want to put him on an ECMO machine, which is a machine, a life support machine, which takes the blood out of your body, oxygenates it and puts it back in. And so mum said, yep, let's do it. They spent the day looking for where I could go and they thought St. Vincent's Hospital in Darlinghurst, they have an ECMO set up there and they've got capacity. So that night, a retrieval team of like ambulances and doctors and paramedics and nurses came to set me up on this machine. And it was a process that took several hours because they had to make a cut. I don't know if you can see it there. There's still a scar. They had to make a cut right here and put a tube in my jugular vein to get blood out. And then it goes to the machine and then it puts it back via my femoral arteries in my legs. And this is a very delicate machine. So if anything goes wrong, because these are big arteries and veins, there's a high risk of me dying if something doesn't go right. So they spent several hours hooking me up to this machine, getting me into the ambulance, and they slowly took me to St. Vincent's Hospital. My mum came up the next day to see me and I wasn't doing well. My blood pressure was up and down. I wasn't getting any better. I was overheating and the hospital said to my mum, you better get family to come in. He may not make this. And it was about this time my mum took this photo of me on life support. Turns out I contracted swine flu and the swine flu had developed into double pneumonia, which is why my lungs were all white in the x-ray. And so basically just watching and waiting. I made it through that day and then I started to stabilize. And over the next couple of days, I started to get better and I got a bit better and a bit more better. And eventually after a number of days, they said, okay, he's improved significantly. We can take this ECMO machine off him and we can just leave him intubated again. Wasn't without its dramas. There was a time there when my blood pressure went up through the roof and the tube in my neck popped out. There was one night when the machine just stopped, and so nurse had to give me CPR until a new machine could be set up. But other than that, it was, I got better and I improved more and more each day. And eventually, after a few more days just being intubated, they thought, right, we can now wake him up. So that was when they woke me up, and I woke up and I heard this story and I'm just in complete disbelief. I'm like, really? That happened to me? Like, this sort of stuff doesn't happen to me or anyone I knew. I was in complete shock. I also had a lot of morphine still in my system, so that made me feel all sorts of different things. But I was in an induced coma on life support for a total of 11 days. And I was even shocked to find out that even 11 days not moving, my muscles had completely atrophied. And on that first day, I tried to get my hands up to my head. It took me ages because I was so weak. And as soon as I got my hands to my head, they just completely fell. I couldn't keep them there. And they told me, don't try and walk because you can't even stand. You will fall. All right. And so the next day, after I woke up, they got me to stand, and I have never been more afraid to stand in my life. I felt I was going to fall. I was assisted to get walking and start moving. And so now the recovery begins. I was told that, when you leave hospital, we're probably going to have to send you to rehab for a few weeks, a month or so. and that's where you'll work on with occupational therapist and getting your strength back and getting back to normal. But while I was still in the hospital, they got me walking. They had OTs to come and visit me, and I'm like, man, I've got a life to get back to. I just started not just a new job, but a new career, and you know, I was living out of home, and I want to get back to my old life. So I was trying to go out, get up, and go walking whenever I could. And I'd be asking, you know, there are OTs coming today. Can we go for a walk? Is there any available? Can we go for another one? And my mum was just saying, look, just slow down. It's going to be okay. You need to do this slowly, because you're going to hurt yourself if you keep going. And I said, no, you don't understand, Mum. I've got a life to get back to. I need to get back to this. And she said, Rodney, you're so stubborn. And I said, no, Mum, I'm just determined. And that's when it hit me. I had never felt this amount of determination ever in my life for anything. And again, I kept pushing and wanting to do more. And then eventually when the hospital approved, all right, you can go for a walk with your mum now, I was now going on extra walks and wanting her to take me. And she'd do it, she'd reluctantly do it, but I needed to get back to it. And so a week after waking up out of my coma, I walked out of hospital to go home. And when I say home, I went back to my mum's place, and I spent a bit more time recovering. And I would walk and things like that. And I knew how far I could push myself. I pushed myself as far as I feel I could go. My mum was still saying, you know, don't push yourself too far. You're gonna hurt yourself. Eventually, I was well enough to go back home to the share flat. And 3 months after becoming sick, I think to the day, I went back to work full time. And, one of the greatest moments of my life is after all that, my mum came up to me and she said, look, you were right. You knew how far you could push yourself, and you didn't overdo it, but you did it, and you've recovered really well. And I've now made a full recovery from all of that. That was 10 years ago. But it really taught me that I never knew how determined I could be. And it goes to show you that when the stakes are high enough, you can find unbelievable amounts of determination. And, people have been saying on my channel, oh my God, you're so determined. And I'm thinking, I think this is determined? That's nothing. Wait till you hear this story. But when the stakes are high enough, and when you have the confidence, you can be determined. And I've also too, something else that hit me, I've never been so grateful for little things ever in my life. I remember the first night I was awake out of my coma, because I had this tube down my throat. Even though it was out now, I hadn't been approved to have any food. The only thing I could have was water with ice cubes in it. And water has never tasted so good. And I wanted more ice cubes. I was eating them like lollies. It was just amazing. I was so grateful for them. And I remember the first time I was able to be taken outside in a wheelchair. I had never been so grateful to just be outside and feel, the breeze on my face. The first day I went outside, it was an overcast day, and I felt like just a single raindrop fall on my face. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And I remember the first proper shower I had, not just a sponge bath. Sure, I was sitting in a shower chair and a nurse was showering me, but I've never had a shower that good. I've never been more grateful for little things ever in my life. And these are some important lessons that I'm taking with me in my life. All right. So do you want to hear more stories like these? Personal stories from my life, not necessarily about weight loss, but, something profound I learned? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe and follow me on my journey. I have had so many people join the channel and follow me in the last few days. Your support is blowing my mind, and thank you so much. And please keep it coming. I haven't been able to make it this far without all of your support. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for watching this far. I know this has been a longer video than usual, but let me know if this is something you want to hear about. And until next time, thanks for watching. And I'm not fat, I'm just big boned.